Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marble Snap video. In this one, we have a bunch of decks for all the different pools for the new location dropping tonight, Orchis Forge. So this one reads, after you play a card here, add a Sentinel to your hand. And unsurprisingly, Devil Dinosaur is going to be really reaping the rewards from this, as it's going to make it super duper easy to have a really big hand, and because of that, a really big dinosaur. So starting out with pool 1 here, we have just a pretty standard dino deck, a lot of the good cards in pool 1 to keep our hand size nice and big, as well as Moon Girl for a second dino potential, White Queen for that information and keeping the hand size up. Spider Woman might seem like a strange include, but this card has actually felt a lot better after the recent buff it got from 7 to 8 power, and seems kind of like a reasonable include now, especially if you're limited to the pool 1 cards. Then we just have some more good cards here in Angela, which gets some nice boosts, especially from something like Nightcrawler that can move out of the lane. Armor for mostly for location protection, as we don't have to worry about Shang-Chi in pool 1 because he's not available yet. Mr. Fantastic helps us fight for those lockdown lanes similar to Nightcrawler, and then Chavez as a big way to finish the game and give us some consistency in our early game draws. Moving on to pool 2 here, we have some good upgrades to the deck. Shang-Chi gonna be a big one here, as we now have a way to deal with opponents' dinos, and I expect there are going to be a lot of dinos tonight, so definitely want to have that included. Some other upgrades we have here. So Collector actually really good with this location, as we have more consistent ways of pumping him up to a higher power. Sunspot and Iceman, two very powerful 1-drops that improve the deck quite a lot. Iceman gives you nice interaction. Sunspot helps out when we don't have something good to play during the turn, or another way of pumping up the other pool 2 card we have here, which is Storm. Storm helps us close down a lane, and then with Sunspot we can pump it up later if need be. Just pretty good cards and solid additions to the foundation of Dino here, and should definitely work pretty well in pool 2. Moving on into pool 3 here, we have some more good upgrades to the Dino Shell. In pool 3, we get access to She-Hulk, which really good synergy with our Sunspot here. We also get Quinjet, which is really nice for the cards we're going to be generating to hand, as well as those Sentinels we'll be getting off of the new location. We also get Juggernaut here, which obviously works very well with our Storm and can just be good in its own right, especially if we have priority, expecting them to Shang-Chi us possibly. We can just knock their Shang-Chi right out of our Dino lane, so they aren't able to swing the game. Other than that, pretty much a very similar list from pool 2 here. We also have Dr. Doom, as he gives us a nice way of being able to get into that Storm lane after it is closed off. Another card you might consider in this deck if you don't have Dr. Doom, Captain Marvel could fill a somewhat similar role here, giving us access to another closed down lane. But overall, I think this is a very solid upgrade to the Dino Shell, and is probably what I'd be using if I was limited to only pool 3 cards. Next up, we have the Reverse Devil Dinosaur, Ronin the Accuser. So this is a card that often doesn't see a whole lot of love. But hey, if your opponent's going to be filling up their hand to keep their dino big, we may as well get a big boy of our own in Ronin, and even if they're not a dino deck, odds are they're probably going to have a bigger hand size because of the location, so maybe it's Ronin's time to shine here. Now this is kind of a good stuff style deck. What that means is we're just playing kind of generically powerful cards, the best cards in their mana slots. So we have Sunspot and Iceman as our 1-drops, Scorpion and Lizard as our 2-drops. You've probably seen a lot of decks like this before, and you know, they are still surprisingly effective. Mr. Fantastic to spread the power around, help with those lockdown lanes we sometimes get from locations. Polaris, I think, is really underrated right now. This card is like surprisingly powerful, whether it's pulling an armor out of a big lane from Shuri so you can Shang-Chi their thing, or whether it's trying to lock up a cluttered Thanos board before they want to close out their own lane. This card is just really solid, and if you're not moving anything, it's still 5 power for 3 cost, which definitely is above rate. Then we have Shang-Chi, just a very powerful way to swing the game back around, and especially good against all the dinos I expect to be seeing. White Queen for good stats, good information. Sometimes gives us a card we can play if we don't like our own options for bigger plays. Arrow, because I mean she's Arrow. If we're ahead, which this deck is pretty good at doing, sometimes she can just win the game. Doom, just to help us play for multiple locations, and also helps play around opposing arrows. And She-Hulk, because she's just a really good big thing and has nice synergy with our Sunspot. Next up, wanted to feature a Nimrod deck, as you know, it's the new Season Pass card. I talked a little bit about my feelings about this card earlier today, and though overall I do think it's not making the biggest impact due to the other balance outliers we have in the meta right now, if you want an excuse to play with it, this is the deck I've found to be the best for Nimrod, and I think it has a reasonable chance of being okay into the hot location, as long as you're dodging some of the top decks like Thanos and Shuri. So this one, we're really just trying to make a bunch of Nimrods. We do have the Black Panther combo with Zola, as well as Shuri for an additional boost as a backup plan. Shuri, really, really good with Nimrod, because we can pump it up to a 10 and then blow it up and then get 2 10s, so pretty powerful. Taskmaster, obviously good with the Black Panther stuff, as well as Nimrod and Destroyer. There's also a cool thing we can do here by ramping out our Nimrod on turn 4. We can then play Destroyer on turn 5, get 2 copies of it, and then we can Zola our Destroyer on the final turn. The Destroyer will pop up twice. Yeah, it'll blow one of itself up, but more importantly, it's going to blow those 2 Nimrod copies up twice. So all the Nimrods all over the place. I've tried a few different things with Nimrod, and I think if there's one thing that might have a bit of success with it, this is probably one of the ways to go. Other than that, we just have some more good ramp cards like Electro and Wave to help cheat us out our big stuff. Sunspot for something to use our energy in the early game. Also has good synergy with the other big thing, She-Hulk, which obviously works well with Taskmaster. So there's a lot of different plans to attack here. And then we just need some more destroy effects for our Nimrod. So we put in Deathlock and Venom, as they seem to be the better options for this kind of shell. Next up, we have what is almost certainly the best deck in the game, Thanos. You really don't need to modify your deck a whole lot for this one, and you have the bonus of having Devil Dinosaur anyway, so you get a benefit from the location. What's there to say about Thanos that hasn't already been said? Deck does a bunch of broken stuff, cheating out a bunch of big things by chucking your stones into Lockjaw, and turning off your opponent's abilities to react to your big things by leeching their hand. This deck is just absolutely the nuts right now, and I really don't think there is anything that seems like it has a good chance of dethroning it until we get some possible future balance adjustments, knocking it down a peg. If you want something that's going to win you games and you don't overly have to play into the new location with, this is the way to go. And last but not least, we have still one of my favorite decks in the game, Sarah Control. This has always been a deck I've really loved, and I still think it's a pretty good deck, and I think it would actually have a very reasonable chance at countering the powerful Thanos deck. The problem is, Sarah Control does not like Leech, because we are often trying to save our big, powerful tech cards here, like Killmonger, like Shang-Chi, like Enchantress, etc., until the end of the game. And if they're leeching us on turn 4 or turn 5, we can't play our Shang-Chi to swing the game, or any of our other tech cards that we normally hold. But if you're able to dodge all the leeches running around, I think this deck is a really good choice. Definitely a good way of dealing with all the dinos I expect to be seeing for this. And it's just a really fun deck to play. Still one of my favorites in the game, even with all the leech menaces running around. But those are all our decks for the new location. I'll have a link in the description to all the different decks where you can import them into the game. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.